Okay, we're here at the Montague Museum. It's a fall day, the sun's out, and I'm standing here. Jack Lipka is here. Jack's parents were one of the original founders of the Montague Museum. And on the other side over here is Jim Haley. And Jim is sort of Mr. Overseer of the Montague Museum.
Well, it started out around our dining room table at home, with the founders got together and Mother made a lunch, and they sat down and said, we got to preserve the old things before they're all gone.
The Montague Museum membership actually purchased this museum with their historical funds. Because actually what we're in is the old, the Montague Methodist Church, and as it says here that there was an earlier church which was burned. They then met at the Presbyterian Church, the Ferry Memorial Church, now known as, and then basically in 1872 they built this, the yellow brick building here. And I mean, we all went to Sunday school here, right?
Yeah, right.
Got our Mrs. Dahl and Helen Anderson and the whole number, right. Okay, Jim. You are now kind of overseeing a lot of improvements and things like that, and the continuation. I often feel that maybe you're kind of taking the role of the new Henry Rossler kind of thing.
Well, I like to think I'm the curator. I'm the financial secretary on the board officially, but I like to think more so I'm the curator.
I think the other thing to go back to is like what Jack was saying is that, okay, so they sit around the table over there at the Lipka house, and that there was a time, this was like during the 1970s, and obviously that generation could see that there was lots of things disappearing. You know, somebody's barn was being torn down, or somebody's whatever was happening, and so there's farm implements, there's you know, canning things, the whole aspect of like previous generations and how they survived, and that that could either going to end up in a dumpster or an antique store or in some kind of a collection, and that's where it all kind of evolved into.
The people of the area made it go because they were willing to give, you know, some pretty nice things, and to have it someplace where everybody could enjoy it.
Yeah, and then later on we get Darwin Bennett, who is very much into history, and he owned the local paper and also was kind of helped promoting that, and then also helped found like the White Lake Historical Society. Interesting spin. Okay, we're at the Montague Museum, and you can begin to see some things which we're collecting or have been collected. And that up here basically is kind of the founders' wall and supporters of the Montague Museum. And you know, Jack's parents are here in the upper picture, Wendell and Opal, Marv and Mamie Lipke, Henry and Velma Rossler, the Wolf family, and other pictures of the people here. The life members are all mentioned up on top, the museum founders, life members underneath that, and the story begins basically here. You kind of walk in and you think like, oh my gosh, what's that thing over there? You know, I don't know what that is, or what did they do with that? Or there's a plaque from the Trunk something line bridge. Where was that? And then the questions begin, and I see over there's a picture of Jerry Ford, you know, President Jerry Ford. Curious, yeah.
Complete uniform of the Spanish-American War, which very few museums have. And this is the Michigan volunteer of that war.
Obviously, medals from, I mean, here's the Purple Heart. It's always nice if you label something on the back, but somehow they didn't. Discharge papers for an Eilers. He was a seaman. Charles Andrew Eilers.
Yeah.
A lot of old medals here too. These are reunions. Like this one's called N.H. Noah H. Ferry, post number 3, Whitehall. Noah Ferry died at the Battle of Gettysburg. There we are, Noah Ferry again. Here we have a .30 caliber water-cooled machine gun. Don't rough around here.
Do you remember when that was in the back of the study hall in Montague High School?
Up in the bookcase or something?
Yeah, up in the back. I don't know why or what, but that was in the school study hall.
Okay. The old early school,
Yeah.
K through 12. And And then, you know, one thing blurs into another. Here we have a lot of the lumbering equipment there, the hooks for rolling logs, and also picking up logs or picking up ice.
Well, both.
Yeah.
That'd be logs more. This top one here is what's called the camp hook. Is peavy. Those were used more in the river drives and stuff, and that was the woods one. And then the long ones, the pipe poles, were used in the river, down at the booming grounds. And all the people, they piped their logs up into the sawmills out of the ponds with those too.
Okay, lumbering era, big important era in Montague, White Lake history. This is done by Bob Wesley. He did it for the Centennial, 1867. Shows all the different mills around White Lake. And Bob, very clever guy. And anyway, also Jack can point out the different logs. Branding, go ahead.
The different log marks were done with the marker in the woods, so that they sorted them in the river at the booming grounds. But this was actually the first zip code of the area.
Okay.
Each mill had their own, several different markers.
A lot of interesting brands.
This was for the guy that gauged the logs. He could strengthen or get this to the slides for the different.
Oh, how many board feet, that kind of thing?
How long he wanted them to cut their pieces.
Okay. Dan Yates did this wonderful book called Logging the White, which tells the whole story of the White Lake chapter in logging.
This is ox yokes that tamed the horses and oxen that were used to drag the logs out of the woods. Here's all the log marks from the area around the White Lake area.
John C. Lewis is the Lewis House next to the Playhouse Theater. Dalton Brothers, Dalton's become the Masons.
Yeah. Dalton's was the first, or one of the first water mills in the area. There was 5 water mills in the area. One at Duck Lake, the Mears Mill in Lion's Den.
Right.
The Daltons were up on Silver Creek, where Eiler's place was. There was the Carlton Mill up on Carlton Creek and Skeels, and then Brown's Mill on Fruitvale Pond.
Yeah, Rochdale,
Brown's
right.
Pond.
Yeah.
Brown.
Okay, the story here is that John Lex Chisholm, son of Nellie B. Chisholm, actually they were cousins of my mother, Lex, and anyway, he worked for the Muskegon Chronicle for years, and then after the Muskegon Chronicle chapter, he retired, and then he traveled extensively, and so, you know, there'd always be postcards at the house from Lex going somewhere on a cruise ship somewhere, some wonderful old photographs and things like that, and then the thing that sort of catches everyone's eye here is the shrunken head, and which comes from, I think, up on the Amazon, and there's a whole story here about Lex and his collection, and just very extensive travels, and curious person, interesting guy. He also wrote a lot about Sidoni. Monkey skin heads was obtained in the home of Chief so-and-so of the head shrinking something tribe of the Peruvian Amazon Indians. I mean, all just great, fascinating things. Yeah, this gets into the Ferry family, and the Ferry family were basically, they founded Grand Haven. He was a minister, Mackinac Island, came down here, founded Grand Haven, Ferrysburg, Ferrysville, down at the old Channel Inn, that mouth area. And then Noah Ferry went off with some of the troops from called the White River Brigade. They went off to Gettysburg, and then unfortunately on July 3rd, 1864, Noah Ferry was killed at the Battle of Gettysburg. But the person who also was involved with Gettysburg and sort of painting the Civil War was Frederick Norman from Whitehall, and the Norman paintings are on the Whitehall Bank over there. And then we have the Reverend William Montague, and that's where Montague gets its name. He married Amanda White Ferry. She had a sister named Mary. The elementary school in Grand Haven's called Mary White. A whole display on the Ferry family here. Founded Ferry Memorial Church, the parsonage. They had the mill. Very prominent family in western Michigan.
These come from the Catholic Church out in Plaquemines, I think.
There are different stations of the cross.
Cross and no, it's a mixture of a lot of churches.
The history of Jack Bursey and exploring the Arctic and the Antarctic, I think.
Yes, he went with Admiral Byrd several times to the Antarctic. And the reason he went, he was the dog sled man from Newfoundland. And that's why he got to go with Admiral Byrd. And he worked here on the staff.
Okay.
Very nice guy. Here's his book. Those are his shoes they wore. They didn't have the old felt like we got.
Wow.
They used the grass from Newfoundland to wrap their feet, dried grass, wrap their feet in them, and that was their insulation. And him and his wife had the acres of diamond store down here on Old Channel Trail. This was my grandparents' parlor set. This red velvet. And as a family, the older ones died off. I collected in Florida. I had them reupholstered.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful collection of ammonites and stones and things like that. And then also up here, a couple of the World's Fair, the Century of Progress in Chicago, along the waterfront. 1934. Big one was the Columbian Exposition, 1893. So, okay, gold races, 1925. Gold Cup races. Al Pack, Clarence Pitkin, grandstands were built for this race. Thousands were spent on seating. Somehow, this is the hall. The grandstand is here. This is like what we used to call the coal dock. Bartow's Marina there, and then the city of Montague's up here, and then this is taken from the Tannery. And so you can see people congregating here, obviously not in the stands, but waiting for the races to begin. And so there's all sorts of information on the Gold Cup races of 1925. Historical Society had a meeting down there years ago, but those were the grandstands that they built. They were having Detroit races. They would have motor races in the Detroit River. And so Historical Society basically featured Celebrate White Lake. And that portion, we did the White Lake Gold Cup races. We did that in 2001. Just more information about the White Lake Gold Cup races, okay? 1925, you've got the Wabaningo Club down at Sylvan. The power boats, they were racing the power boats on the Detroit River. And so Continental Motors was making motors, and so they did these very sleek boats. Bartow Boat Works made some down there in Maple Grove. And here they are, you can kind of see them racing. This is another spot, but they went wildly down the lake. These are a series of canes that were collected by Marjorie DeWitt, Marjorie Dowling DeWitt. She was the kindergarten teacher that everyone had, and there's always lots of stories. And so these canes are all, this is to certify that Marjorie DeWitt has been at the Rainbow Bridge on something night, 1951. And they're all inscribed. And This one says Lake O'Hara, Alberta, Kansas. In fact, what's the one you said? It says something like Trail Ridge Road, Rocky Mountain National Park. She traveled extensively, always, and here's another one that says, this is to certify Marjorie DeWitt has hiked 10 days in Glacier National Park, August 3, 1953. Some more names, and then I guess the people who hiked with her, but obviously all kind of her hiking sticks. We'll go downstairs later on, and then she has a birch bark canoe, which is down there in the Marjorie DeWitt room, which also is a great story.
And her dip in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, right. You did some great walking sticks.
Yeah, but she just picked these up evidently wherever she was, but she brought them home with her.
Right.
And 53, I mean, that's after we were out of school.
We were out of school, right. Well, she's retired then,
I
right?
thought she was a great, people always had stories about her, but I thought she was great. She taught kids discipline. And Grace, and they had that little fish pond down.
Right.
She'd come down with the kids, and each kid stood in line and went up and looked, and then they got to the back of the line, you know.
Well, that's what I was going to say. She was a great environmentalist. She taught those kids all about that. These are some photos of Al Pack. And Al Pack basically was a big yachtsman, had some foundries, steel mills, and it's now what's called Oxy Lodge. And so there's Mr. and Mrs. Pack, and down at the old house, down by Whitbreck Road. This is the original Bardo Boat Works in the background there. Lasted a long, long time. Came down when ultimately 1920s, lasted until probably the 1970s. And so this is called Miss White Lake, owned by Commodore Albert Pack, which will contend for the free-for-all runabout championship. But anyway, those boats were made down at Bardo Boat Works, and that's one of them, the speedboats for Gold Cup races 1925. If you come and you do a shift, you're supposed to do a shift for help the Montague Museum as a docent, and you do a shift from 1 to 5 on Saturday or Sunday. And so if it's slow, what you end up doing is you open up something, and then you start exploring on your own, and there's just endless. This says postcards, lots of information you just get into. It's fascinating. This is another painting by Frederick Norman, and it's the White Lake Channel. His other paintings are in the Whitehall Bank. This a kid's teeter-tot? Fun.
Of course, Lawrence Electric, and it had electric lights and stuff.
Oh, okay. And there must be an on button or something, but it's wound up. Or maybe that's a switch right there. Oh, look at the horn, it's leather.
Like a homemade thing.
Yeah. It says Columbia. Please do not touch, okay.
Must be the portable version.
God, that looks like something that came from Sedona or something.
No, yeah, some guy in Whitehall built that, and I can't remember what.
Wow.
It does look like stuff at Sedona.
Sedona is right, yeah.
Well, or Howard Durham. Well, it's like a short wave.
KSTC of Hayes, first prize, artistic float, July 4th, 1924, Ellis County. That is a picture, I think, of Frederick Norman. His palette
Yeah. That cow, those
and a few cow shots.
yeah.
Little Point Sable.
The top one was made by Nels Olson. He was the one that Trinity Lutheran Church on Stony Lake Road. And that came back to us by his son. That came into, from Sun City, Arizona, it came into Pitkins on the Greyhound, and I went and hauled it here.
Really?
And it was laid down, Jack Bursey put all the rigging back up and stuff
Okay.
on it.
Would that have been a lumbering schooner?
Yeah, well, I don't know, he carved it, just put his own name on it.
Ah.
Music box.
There's all the different tunes.
Right, right.
That's from Jack and Jill.
Okay.
Hopefully, they had better tunes than that.
Oh yeah, Winslow, Seth Winslow. Then there was another one that had a big flash on top of it, like they put the bulb in.
I think it's like 127 film or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1893, they had the Columbian Exposition in Chicago. It was the Great World's Fair, and it was the Great White City. And basically, it was all Beaux-Arts architecture, along the lagoons, Frederick Law Olmsted, Daniel Burnham, the whole city planning gang. It was a great boom to Chicago, and like everyone somehow from here went down on the boats, and they would go down on the boats, and basically it was all like white columns in the Great White City. And so, like if you drive down Old Channel Trail, you'll see like every house has a white porch with a white column kind of thing.
Yeah, these counters were all donated by Glenn Lipka and from the old Ripley drugstore. These are the ones we pushed down the street on the ice. This was there's a little electric heater and you heated up lead and poured it in molds.
Here's the early train, all right? And then right alongside of it is another generation of the rocket.
Yeah, you put some caps in here and then you take it and you bang.
Okay, and this came from?
Well, the one switchboard's from the Occidental Hotel and the other one's from DuPont.
Really?
And the rest of the phones are all just gathered all. Yeah, when you called to the operator over there in Whitehall where Falby's hair place is,
Right.
that's the old phone company for the area. You rung up the operator and she talked to you and found out who you wanted to talk to and plugged you into them, and maybe they got 4 rings and 2 longs and 2 shorts or something, and then everybody on the party line picked up to see who was talking.
Right, who's talking where, right. Yeah, being a switchboard operator was a big deal. I remember Edie Nesbitt was.
Yeah, her and her sister Pearl
Right.
and one of the hall girls.
Okay. And they probably knew everything going on in town, right?
Well, they had to. Well, you know, it's amazing, like with the ones downstairs, the kids don't know how to work a dial phone.
They don't.
I know, right.
I mean, they'll go like they want to, they'll
push
punch
it.
this, think that they can.
It's true.
I can remember our first one at home, we had a box like that and then a phone like this. You cranked it.
Right. Well, that's a happy-looking couple there. Look at
Yeah,
them. Were they happy to be here? We hope you are too. Smile, baby.
Is that a mom and pop Bill?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, just Rochdale and Brown's Pond out on Fruitvale Road, big deal. Up until probably about the 50s when it finally all burned down. But you know, people come up on the Goodrich boats and then they take a launch up the river or go out by road, and then interesting spot. Jack?
Yeah, it was, well, it started out with Brown's, the pond was built for the, his water mill there. It's one of the 5 water mills in the area. And then it reverted into, and they'd sold lots
Oh yeah.
all over in Chicago. They'd give one away and then you had to buy another one in order to build a house on it.
And then Bill Hansen is on, you know, the Lost City of Fruitvale. Done a couple books on that, and very interesting, as Jack mentioned, like 25 by 100-foot lots. I mean, dinky lots. And I remember, like, Dad was a surveyor, and so said, "Hey, I bought, you know, I got lot 1 or 4 or 5 or something in block 6, and you know, what street is it on?" And it's in the middle of the woods. It's all
Yeah,
paper streets. It was never platted.
Uncle Bill was working for King's at one time, and people come in and go look at their lots. They always showed them the same property over and over and over. Because you didn't know where your stuff was.
That's the Goodrich steamship coming in, and that's down at Maple Grove. That's the old dock there down at the Narrows. The tannery's right over there. And so obviously they would come here, and then you can see there's a launch ready to take them up to Rochdale, or you go up by bus. Kennedy, the torch is passed. And so just different books on history, Michigan history, that sort of thing.
This is your first height of it,
Whoa, okay.
and it just flipped on out. It was, when there wasn't a lot of extra bedrooms, you had this in the parlor. It looked like a fireplace, but it was really an extra bed.
We talked about Dowie and the other 1893 World's Fair, Columbian Exposition, Chicago. Incredible fair. Actually, these are a bunch of plates and things from that. This was all kind of a Rochdale Inn. Harold Kazner's done a lot of work on this. Brown's Pond starts out as a lumbering site up above here, and then grows into this summer resort called Rochdale Inn. There's sort of the beautiful people on the limb here, and then the banjo girls.
And he would take people up there.
Okay, that's Frank Ramsey Adams, Newford Adams Playhouse, 1916, and the 100-year centennial is now. And so obviously then here are a bunch of old scripts and things like that are Frank Adams' writings. He wrote for Cosmopolitan, Red Book, a lot of great script writer out in LA. Interesting story in California world. Marion Davies, San Simeon, that sort of thing, and William Randolph Hearst. There we are, 1924. If we look in here, there'll be an article by Frank Ramsey Adams. Oh, there it is, okay. And Heartbroken at 17. Boy, part 1, The Kiss. Part 2?
Well, this is just the files of a lot of stuff that if people want to look up stuff. And we got stuff for sale here.
So if you wanted something on the Ferry family, you wanted something on Dowling, etc., you just kind of go to the file, and I mean, I look at this, there's something obviously that's Nellie B. Chisholm kind of thing, right? County Commissioner of Schools. And so obviously there's a file on Chisholm there. And Doug and Gretchen Paprocki did a lot of filing a long time ago. It desperately needs more filing. Yeah, when I have duty here, people love this because they come in here and they'll spend the whole afternoon just going through these wonderful photographs. And there's a story behind every one. Yeah. Actually, Jim Haley's picked up. There's some wonderful photographs of Old Town, Montague, Whitehall, Goodrich Park, G and Carr, Hardware Store, Bell's Furniture. Just lots of information. Montague, pictorial history. Harold Kasner does good stuff. Collects very, very helpful. Obviously, there's a new book on the White Lake Golf Club, and they're having their 100. Dan Yates' book, Land Between Silver Beach. A lot of good stuff. Bud and Aileen Fritsch died, and Bud just died recently, but they restored some wonderful houses, and the last house they did is the one up there. That's the old. That house was built by the Knudsen family. One of the signers of the original plat of the city of Montague. Ferry Memorial Church had it. So, a lot of things on Sedoni.
The staircase and collectibles was from Charlie Eilers. He was a captain on one of the boats. He traveled the world. Got a lot of this. One of the Eilers from out here in the country.
Well, Nancy Fleming, Miss America in 1961, and first was Miss Michigan, and then from Montague, and then went to Michigan State, and then went on and went to a Los Angeles chapter, married Jim Lang, dating game. And Nancy lives in Mill Valley, where I used to live. I called her last winter, as a matter of fact. Wonderful, wonderful lady.
This is all school collections, annuals, different books on different schools, the country schools, stuff. It's trying to get all the annuals.
The yearbooks, right?
Yearbooks, yeah.
What happens in the school is that they were like little district schools, township schools, and then slowly they consolidated them. They consolidated them, and Nellie B. Chisholm was very involved in that and consolidated the Montague High School, the old early building. And anyway, so then the schools basically became part of the consolidated school system, and they did a lot of busing and things like that.
Montague Schools was probably the first to have portable classrooms. They moved two of the country schools, the G and the Sumner School, in here on William Street and fixed them up for extra classrooms back in the late 40s.
After World War II, there was the population boom, young people, and also the DuPont people and the chemical people, and so you needed rooms, and so they moved them in town. Dowie Point, John Alexander Dowie, late 1890s, 1906, and great shot up there. We kind of looks like the Pope. And anyway, Edinburgh to Australia, back to Edinburgh University, and then back to Australia, and then comes through San Francisco, preaches, and then ends up in 1893 in the World's Fair in Chicago. Has a little tabernacle, and then he's a faith healer. Heal this person, and somehow they are healed, and so he had a great following. He ends up buying 6,000 acres north of Chicago, and follow me, I'll take you to Zion, and he built Zion, Illinois, and that was his summer house down at Dowie Point, now Oxy site. Great collection on Dowie. Colorful character.
They said his office in Chicago there was, he had crutches and all that stuff hanging on the wall where people came in with them. left walking on.
I'm cured, yeah.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Yeah. And then he had a daughter, obviously that's probably Esther. He preached against alcohol, and you were not supposed to be involved with alcohol. And somehow she was using an alcohol curling iron kind of thing, and it exploded, and she had severe burns. And then she died, and it was very awkward because basically he's the faith healer, and he can't heal his daughter. He got very grand. It started out being very simple, then ends up being very grand.
This here corner collection is from Mrs. Gibbs, our old music teacher at the school. For hers bands.
Actually, this has to do with kind of like style. You know, there's what people wore. I mean, interesting. Cards.
Valentine cards. Were pretty fancy these days.
Also, what's interesting, I just saw this. Carmelita Guerin. She was a very colorful lady, Sylvan Beach, had a shop called the Valhalla down at Sylvan Beach, worked for the Chamber of Commerce here. Guerin family was very big. They started with one of the members of the sailing school, yacht club kind of thing. Had a house struck by lightning down the dunes. Fashion.
My grandpa got that from Crowell's Tavern for being a good customer.
Really?
It was filled with whiskey.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Refillable, right?
Probably, yeah. Well, Doc Smith was one of our old dentists here. He's graduated at the University of Michigan. He was quite a community man. He was on the council and stuff. But his stuff was rather crude in those days. I mean, the way they worked on your teeth wasn't what we have today.
That was horrible. I mean, I think I went to him once kind of thing, and it was like, you know, the drilling was like a rubber band or something that went around and on and on and on, and made a horrible grinding sound. And it was upstairs over Lipka's store, and so you had to climb 1,000 steps.
Yeah.
And I suppose today they wouldn't let you up because that lead pipe or something like that. But anyway, amazing. You climbed all the steps, and then. But actually, Jack is right. He was very much involved, and he was one of the first mayors of Montague, and then renovated a house behind our house, and then built a house down in Maple Grove. Interesting guy.
I like this sign here. You know, we had Doc Gauss and Doc Willett down here.
Right.
They didn't have any equipment. They looked at your nails and your eyes and took your blood pressure and stuff and guessed, I guess, what was wrong with you. But I mean, they did all right for the people.
This is the hairdresser up there.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, hair.
Oh my, that's scary.
Who was Louisa? Do we know who she was?
No. Yeah, they just put all those clips on and then turned the electricity on and they heated them up and curled your hair.
You're knowing something.
Now we have electric curlers, or then they use this style and heated it on the stove or the old lamp.
Right, that's what Dowie's daughter would have been using. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They used to do it in a lamp or on the stove. These are the bars from the old Montague jail.
Okay, get me out of here. Hurry, hurry. Yes.
I didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Okay.
I wasn't drinking.
Right.
That wasn't me.
Tell that to the cops.
And that's about all they had in the old jail, I think, was a drunk once in a while. Fire department was started in the 1860s or 70s by the lumber people. for a little protection for their buildings. And it's grown into quite a setup. This old hose cart was right here at the top of the hill. And the water mains on Sheridan and Meade were fire lines. They'd pump it up with the old steam engine down at the City Hall out of the creek.
Really?
Pressurize the mains. They pull this here. That was Earl Sherdam, the old alphabet, old farmer out here in the country, and then he lived down here in White Lake later years.
That's great.
All from pine roots. This is a bean sorter. These two are bean sorters. Yeah, that was where there's the saw, right? One of them right behind here.
Down below.
That was Rufus Hunt had that. Then he sold it to Grovers and they cut it, ice, and put it up for the. But ice was a big business. There was people that contracted because all the resorts and stuff around the lake had ice houses. So they'd contract with people to fill their houses every winter. And so there was a lot of people, they, living off of it in the wintertime. This is one of the first washing machines. You just put it in a bucket. Work it up and down like that.
This is the kind of stuff that when kids come by today, they look at it and they can't quite believe the idea that, you can't put it in the, you can't put it in the dryer, you have to crank it. I mean, come on, You want me to scrub it? It's real, Okay.
And I don't know how that was supposed to work this one.
We just rock back and forth with this
Yeah.
a gentle wash. Beats going down to the creek, right?
Yeah. The old shoe, everybody fixed their own shoes and stuff, and you had them redone. Now we just throw them in the garbage. But
Right.
old Axel Jonas, the old Johnson, the old harness man in town, he went eventually revolved into fixing shoes and stuff.
This is for like horses to keep
Or
the
see
flies off,
flies
right?
off, yeah. Well, teams, that's for a 3-horse hookup. You had horse.
3 horsepower.
3 horsepower, yeah. Of course, the old crocks for making sauerkraut.
There's the evolution of vacuum cleaners over there also. Get a Hoover. Also, this is where so much of Muskegon comes in. It starts out, you start making something, and then you improve it and you improve it, and it gets bigger and bigger, and industry goes on, and now it seems like it's all miniaturized and electronic, whereas before, manufacturing amazing stuff. Look at these gadgets. I have no idea what this is.
That's for boring and barn beams.
Okay, big, yeah.
You'd clamp this on the beam,
Okay.
you'd set it up or straight up or whatever angle, and then you'd sit there and there's 2 handles. This is a little more modern one,
Okay.
but that's how they bored for the pigs and beam barns.
Yeah, just fascinating equipment.
That's a hay fork.
Oh, okay. Hay fork.
in the barn and dropped down and the white load went up and across and dropped it again.
Right.
A gas heater for cars, and they use a lot of them in the ward in planes and stuff, but it run off gasoline, and you pull this out and it started. You had that in the compartment with you. You went from the old manifold heaters to this style, and here's an old drill. Of course, these were just about everybody in the country had a sharpening stone. They made thousands of them over at Grindstone City up in the thumb of Michigan, right at the top of the thumb. This is for cutting grain and wheat. Some of them had a cradle on the back of it, so you cut your wheat like that and then dump it. Then the wife and kids come along and take some of the straw and put it in a bundle. But it's still, that came out of the depot down here in Montague. That's a coffee grinder, would have been in a store. Just put your coffee beans in there.
Where'd the batteries go?
Right here.
Yeah, right.
Those are all green machines. This here little stove. Wood to coal fire. They made those down here in the foundry. Cast these tops and this door. Put the rods in. Down, D. Webster had a lot to do with that. They were manufactured for and sold to Coca-Cola Company for in their trucks. Imagine going down the road with a wood fire in the back of your truck. But that's what they were for. But most of the people in town had one for their fish shanties.
Right.
There's a couple of them. But they cast them down here in the foundry and put them together in Webster's store, which would have been Myers.
Kind of where Holly has it.
Yeah. They were from the Guest Hall and Krupp barbershop.
Ah. Rather elaborate. How about the back bar, Jack?
That came from there too. For a cistern. You know, where you had water in the cistern, you just go out and get your washed water and stuff.
Oh, okay. Really?
You had soft water. Once again, it was hand powered. That's why people had a lot of kids.
Right.
But those cups would go down and bring the water up and dump them. There's a spout on the other end.
This is please return fund.
Yeah. This old ice box, where you had ice delivery in town, you'd put this in your window. If you want 75 pounds of ice, this probably held 50, so you put that in the window. The iceman came by and he brought it in and put it in here. He washed the sawdust off of it back in this truck.
I was painting over the DeWitt house in Wynwood down in Cullen, and by a window frame there was this big chiseled kind of mark, kind of, what's all this? I said, geez, what kind of a bug would have done this, or termites would be up here? He said, oh, Roger, that's where you put the ice pick with the sign, and that's exactly what you did. You want 100 pounds or you want 75? Smart.
Then went to this was the early GE. We call that the birdcage refrigerator. Had a little push, it had ice. But that was begin to get where you could keep stuff. The next step, you had one you could keep ice cream in and stuff. This come from over at Leisman.
Oh, really? Okay.
They got a new one, and Dad got with it. And Mrs. Voss up on the North Hill, just across on Park Street. She was an old lady, and Dad had got her house under, she had a life lease, so anyway, got that, took it to her. When we were remodeling the house after she died, it went up to Osborne's cabin up in the UP.
Well traveled.
You could just go up there and you plug the thing in and it shook a little bit, and away it went. Unplugged it, and it was still running the day they unplugged it and brought it in.
Wow.
Well, this room was a storeroom and a workshop, and with Henry Rossler, and we got together and I patched the ceiling, and Charlie Hoagland and the team, and we painted it, and painted the room, and put these lights up, and then the gals turned the gals loose, and they went around the museum, because all this kitchen stuff was everywhere. And they gathered everything and brought it in and made the display. Irons. The early days, these old irons would sit on the stove and you just changed these here. I always had a hot one. Then you went to, this is an alcohol burner to heat it. Then your electric ones came along. This was a heater. If you didn't have your range running, you could heat your kerosene burner here. Toasters. This here's an early toaster. You just brought this out and turned the other side of the bread and put it back. And then, of course, we got to the pop-ups. Early waffle irons. That's all meat saw from the store. Early day cream separators. People with 10, 12 cows, they'd separate the cream off. So the cream, the skim milk, which we drink now, went to the hogs. That's an early churn. During the era of wood ranges in the kitchen, in summertime they got pretty hot, so people went to these kerosene stoves. Kerosene was in the bottle over here. And outside of stinking, they worked pretty good. Make your own malted milks. Different meat grinders, sausage makers. Put the stuff in there and grind it into a tube out here. Another old butter churn. That's a coffee grinder. This here was for cutting coleslaw, cabbage. Put it in here. Well, I guess it's locked in. Push that back and forth and slice your cabbage. People still do that at home now. This bottle is from the Montague Brewing Company.
Okay.
Which was right where John Elke's house is now, on the hill, on Ferry Street, up above the wayside. They had good spring water coming through there, and that was for the brewer.
Because I went like that I found it down at Maple Grove Park, obviously the old landfill kind of stuff. And then all the cherry pitters and things up there.
Yeah. I mean, women canned all their stuff. A woman's life wasn't easy.
Right.
I mean, she canned, had all the peaches, pears, everything down, canned meat, stuff, in the basement. They didn't run to the store every day or two.
No. Couldn't microwave it.
I don't know, it looks pretty, yeah, it's a wood shovel. Well made.
Okay, the Franklin House down at the corner of Ferry Street and Dowling. The big great porch in front. Continued. The Montague Bank was here. This is the Dowling Street Hill. Down here in 1961, the Great Fire burns. Trails meet, went from Murray's Inn over to Lowell Road. You put your car in there and you could go back and forth without having to drive around the lake. Sherman's Ark, which is here, down which is off at Lakeside Inn, and used it for winter fishing, and they rented you can see all the little rental cabins out there, fish shanties, yacht club, gaff rigs, toboggan slide, kind of like Water Wonderland kind of thing, and that would be down at White Lake Villa, Swenson's. And then a wonderful shot down there of the Alpac Boathouse and one of his big yachts.
Oh, that is pretty.
Yeah, we talked earlier about Marjorie DeWitt, and that basically she had this little birch bark canoe and she would paddle around, and actually I found a piece of birch bark and I thought kids don't even know what birch bark is, but basically Marjorie DeWitt's birch bark canoe is made out of basically Betula, that's a genus species name, habitat for the tree, but there's birch, and then that's made out of birch put on the frame, and she had that at the old DeWitt house.
Built by a Wisconsin chief, an actual chief. Tried names over there.
Who painted the murals on the wall here, Jack?
Everett G.
I kind of wondered. It looked like Everett G.
Yeah, I got
I think it's just local. Yeah, I think she was on a trip around the world, and she was on this plane, and two planes collided near the Philippines, and they went down at sea, and she lived, and she was upset because she lost her camera or something like that.
Yeah. She taught, saved her money, and then took a trip every year.
She's the lady with the walking sticks upstairs.
This was manufactured in Montague, Michigan.
Which was?
This little carving set. And it says that. Montague, Michigan.
Okay.
It's magic.
Did they retire to the biggest house on the highest hill?
See, carved animals with that.
All right, another clue on the propeller here is that, as has been pointed out here, the propeller was cast by the Wilton Henry Foundry Montague Iron Works 1880s, and then it was taken from a tugboat, the William Richards, after sinking in White Lake. And I don't know where in White Lake it sank.
It was sunk right in down in the slip.
Slipped.
about where the Ellenwood clubhouse is now, swimming pool.
Okay. Yeah, and here it is.
All donations accepted.
Okay, we started here at the Montague Museum, and we went in the side entrance, here the front entrance, and now we're concluding. And so we're standing here leaning against this wonderful propeller, which was made by the Montague Ironwork, which is located down where Montague Foods is located now. And Jack's told some very interesting stories about the early days of the museum. Also, Jim is very knowledgeable about the current and evolving Montague Museum. And so we hope that everyone will come and visit the Montague Museum, and also the Montague Museum also is always looking for help, donations, and also a lot of help during the summer season. You take a shift from 1 to 5, and the museum is yours for your shift, and you learn a lot and discover a lot. Thanks for coming.